Imagine the moment the world changes. It does not begin with a bang or a siren, but with a sudden, suffocating silence. You are sitting in your living room, perhaps reading or watching television, when everything simply cuts out. At first, it feels like a standard power outage, the kind you have experienced a dozen times before during summer storms or winter blizzards. You glance out the window, expecting to see streetlights or the glow of a neighbor's porch, but the darkness is absolute. It is a heavy, unnatural depth of black that swallows the neighborhood. You instinctively reach for your phone to check the local utility status or text a friend, but the screen remains black. You press the power button, holding it down, but there is no familiar logo, no vibration, nothing. You walk to your car, turn the key or push the starter, and instead of the engine turning over, you are met with dead silence. No dashboard lights, no clicking of the starter solenoid, just metal and plastic sitting inert in the driveway. This is the moment realization sets in. This is not a blown transformer or a downed line. This is the scenario experts refer to as an electromagnetic pulse, or perhaps a massive solar coronal mass ejection. The specific cause, whether it is a high-altitude detonation or a solar event, is irrelevant in these first few minutes. The only thing that matters is that the grid is down, the electronics are fried, and you are now living in a world where the rules of survival have fundamentally shifted. The most critical action you can take in the first 60 seconds has nothing to do with tactical gear or checking your supply cache. The most important thing you can do is stand still and breathe. It sounds incredibly simple, almost trivial, but the physiological response to a sudden catastrophic shift in your environment is panic. Adrenaline floods your system, your heart rate spikes, and your cognitive functions narrow. If you act on that panic, you will make mistakes. You might run to the store when you should be filling water containers, or you might draw attention to yourself when you should be fading into the background. Force yourself to stop. Take 10 seconds to consciously slow your breathing. Look around your immediate environment. Listen. The silence will be the most telling indicator. If there is no hum of distant traffic, no air conditioners running, no airplanes overhead, the scale of the event is likely massive. Once you have mastered your own fear, you can begin to assess your home. There is a pervasive myth that an electromagnetic pulse destroys absolutely everything with a circuit board. This is not necessarily true. The physics of an electromagnetic pulse are complex, and the damage depends heavily on the strength of the surge and the length of the conductor acting as an antenna. Devices that were plugged into the wall grid are at the highest risk because the power lines themselves act as massive antennas, channeling that surge directly into your refrigerator, your television, and your computer. However, small electronics that were disconnected, sitting in a drawer or resting on a shelf, have a much higher probability of survival. Your battery-powered flashlight, your handheld radio, your electronic watch, and perhaps even an old laptop stored in a closet might still function. Walk through your home and test them. Do not assume they are broken. Toggle the switches. If you find a working radio, that is gold. If you find a working flashlight, that is a tactical advantage. This inventory process gives you immediate, tangible data about your situation, rather than leaving you in a state of catastrophic guessing. Your vehicle is another major variable. Pop culture suggests that every car on the road will instantly stop, creating a massive graveyard of steel on the highways. Real-world testing suggests a more nuanced reality. While modern vehicles are packed with microprocessors, the metal body of the car acts as a partial Faraday cage, and the wiring harnesses are relatively short compared to the power grid. Many cars, even modern ones, may simply stall and require a restart. Others might have fried dashboard clusters, but the engine control unit might still fire the cylinders. If your car is in the driveway, try to start it. If it struggles, try again. Cycle the key. If it runs, you have a mobile generator and a transport vessel. If it does not, you have a secure storage locker. Do not abandon it mentally just yet. However, understand that even if your car works, the infrastructure it relies on does not. Gas pumps run on electricity. Traffic lights are dark. The roads may be impassable due to other vehicles that did fail. A working car is a resource, but it is not a guarantee of mobility. Once you have assessed what is working and what is not, your priority must shift immediately to water. This cannot be. You can survive 3 weeks without food, but you will not last 3 days without water, and you will not function well after just 1 day of dehydration. Modern municipal water systems utilize massive electric pumps to move water from treatment plants to water towers and eventually to your tap. When the grid fails, those pumps stop. There is usually some residual pressure in the system, provided by gravity from water towers, but that pressure is a ticking clock. Depending on your elevation and proximity to the tower, you might have an hour of flow or you might have only minutes. Do not wait to see if the lights come back on. Go to the bathtub immediately. Plug the drain and turn on the cold water. Fill it to the brim. Fill every cooking pot, every pitcher, every bucket, and every water bottle you own. This water does not need to be purified right now, it just needs to be captured. You can worry about filtering it later. If the event is short-term, you simply drain the tub and move on. If the event is long-term, that bathtub represents 50 to 80 gallons of life-sustaining fluid that you otherwise would have lost. While you are securing water, consider the hidden reserves in your home. Your water heater is essentially a large vertical storage tank holding anywhere from 30 to 50 gallons of potable water. In a grid-down scenario, this is a treasure trove. To access it, you will need to know how to act. First, shut off the gas or flip the breaker for the electric heating element to prevent a fire or element burnout if the tank empties. Then locate the water inlet valve at the top of the tank and close it. To get the water out, you will need to open the drain valve at the bottom, but physics dictates that water will not flow out unless air can get in to replace it. You must open a hot water tap somewhere in the house or disconnect the hot water pipe at the top of the tank to break the vacuum. This water might have some sediment at the bottom, so running it through a t-shirt or coffee filter before drinking is wise, but it is generally safe and clean. Do not overlook the toilet tanks either. The water in the tank, not the bowl, is clean, usable water. Between the heater, the toilet tanks, and whatever you captured in the bathtub, you could have enough water to keep a family alive for 2 weeks if rationed strictly. Food is your next concern, but the strategy here is different. Unlike water, which is stable, your food supply is now decaying. Your refrigerator is effectively a cooler now. Without power, it will keep food safe for about 4 hours. Your freezer, if full and left unopened, might hold its temperature for 48 hours. If it is half full, you have perhaps 24 hours. This dictates your menu for the immediate future. You are now on a mission to consume the most perishable items first. Eat the leftovers, the dairy, and the fresh meat. Do not worry about balanced meals or breakfast foods versus dinner foods. If you have steak in the freezer, you are having steak for breakfast. The goal is to convert that perishable food into caloric energy within your body before it becomes a biological hazard. If you have a way to cook, such as a barbecue grill or a camping stove, you can cook all the meat at once to extend its shelf life by a few days. But be mindful of the smell. In a hungry world, the scent of grilling meat is a beacon that travels for blocks. This brings us to the concept of rationing. In a normal world, we eat when we are hungry and we eat until we are full. In a survival scenario, this mindset must be dismantled. You need to view food purely as fuel. Take a complete inventory of your pantry. Count every can of beans, every box of pasta, every bag of rice. Calculate the total calories available. If you have 50,000 calories of shelf-stable food and 4 people in your house, and you decide that each person gets 2,000 calories a day, you have less than a week of food. That is a sobering realization for most families. You will need to make hard choices immediately. Cut portions in half. Expect to feel hungry. Hunger is uncomfortable, but it is not fatal. Running out of food entirely is fatal. The earlier you start rationing, the longer your supplies will last. If you wait until the shelves are empty to start cutting back, you have already wasted precious resources. Communication, or the lack thereof, is one of the most psychologically punishing aspects of a widespread blackout. We are addicted to information. We are used to knowing the weather, the news, and the status of our friends instantly. When that feed is severed, the isolation can feel overwhelming. You will not know if this is a local problem or a global catastrophe. You will not know if the military is distributing aid or if the cities are burning. This is where an AM/FM radio becomes your lifeline. AM signals travel much further than FM signals, especially at night, bouncing off the ionosphere. Even if local stations are down, you might pick up a clear signal from a station 500 miles away.
Scan the dial slowly. Listen for emergency broadcasts. Even a fragment of news can be critical for morale and decision-making. If you hear that relief trucks are moving to a specific location, you have a goal. If you hear nothing but static on every band for days, that too is information. It tells you that the collapse is total and you are on your own. Let us discuss the scenario where you are not at home when the event occurs. This is a common fear. You are at work, 30 miles away, and the lights go out. Your car will not start, or perhaps the traffic is so gridlocked that driving is impossible. You are now a refugee in your own city. Your goal is simple: get home. But the execution is dangerous. Do not count on public transport. Do not count on taxis or ride shares. You are walking. An average person in reasonable shape can walk roughly 20 miles in a day on flat terrain. That means a 30-mile commute is now a 2-day hike. This is why having a get-home bag in your vehicle is not paranoid, it is practical. This bag does not need to be a full wilderness survival kit. It needs to contain comfortable walking shoes, socks, a liter of water, a few energy bars, a flashlight, and a rain poncho. If you are wearing dress shoes or heels, walking 30 miles is not just difficult, it is injury-inducing. Blisters can become infected. A twisted ankle can leave you stranded. The bag buys you mobility. As you walk home, your demeanor matters. This introduces the concept of the gray man. You do not want to look like a tactical operator. You do not want to look like a victim. You want to look like everyone else, confused, tired, and uninteresting. Do not display your supplies. Keep your backpack nondescript. Move with purpose, but do not run. Avoid eye contact, but stay aware of your surroundings. In the first few hours, people will be confused and generally helpful. They will share information. But as the hours turn into days and the reality of the situation sets in, the social atmosphere will curdle. Desperation shifts the moral compass. A person who would never steal a bottle of water on a Tuesday might fight you for one on a Friday if their child is crying from thirst. Move quickly in the early hours to avoid this shift in the social dynamic. Once you are home and the family is accounted for, you must address security. This is an uncomfortable topic for many, but it must be faced. Your home is now your warehouse, your shelter, and your castle. In a grid-down world, the police are not coming. You are your own first responder. Security begins with deterrence. You do not want to be the house that looks like a target. If you have battery-powered lanterns, do not place them near windows where they can be seen from the street. Use blackout curtains or heavy blankets to cover your windows at night. Light discipline is essential. If your house is glowing while the rest of the street is pitch black, you are advertising that you have resources. You are signaling that you have batteries, which implies you have food and water. Keep a low profile. Physical security is the next layer. Lock your doors and windows, obviously, but go further. Reinforce the strike plates on your door frames with 3-inch screws that go deep into the studs. This makes kicking the door in significantly harder. Clear away brush or furniture from around your windows that could provide cover for an intruder. But the most important element of security is community. You cannot stay awake 24 hours a day. You cannot watch the front door and the backyard simultaneously. You need sleep. This is where neighbors become vital. A neighborhood that bands together, shares watch shifts, and communicates about threats is infinitely safer than a lone survivalist sitting in the dark with a shotgun. Talk to the neighbors you trust. Form a plan. If a group of looters enters a street and sees 5 neighbors standing together with flashlights and resolve, they will likely move on to an easier target. There is strength in numbers. However, community dynamics can be tricky. You must be careful about operational security. Do not broadcast the extent of your food supplies to everyone. You can offer to help with labor, you can share skills, you can perhaps share water if you have a surplus, but keep the details of your long-term food storage within your immediate family. Envy is a powerful and dangerous emotion. If a neighbor knows you have 6 months of food while their children are starving, even a good neighbor might become a threat. Charity is noble, but in a survival situation, you must balance charity with the reality that you cannot feed the entire neighborhood. If you give away your supplies in the first week, you will all starve together in the second. Sanitation is the silent killer in these scenarios.
We are accustomed to flushing a toilet and having the waste disappear. When the water stops and the sewers back up, disease becomes a greater threat than violence. Dysentery, cholera, and typhoid have killed more people in history than bullets. you need a dedicated plan for waste. If you have a backyard, you can dig a latrine. It needs to be at least 100 feet away from your home and any water source. Dig a trench or individual cat holes. Cover the waste with dirt immediately after use to prevent flies from spreading bacteria. If you are in an apartment or cannot go outside, you need a bucket system. Line a 5-gallon bucket with a heavy-duty trash bag. Use kitty litter, sawdust, or even dried dirt to cover the waste after each use. When the bag is full, seal it tight and store it in a designated area away from your living space until it can be buried or disposed of safely. Wash your hands religiously. If you do not have running water, use hand sanitizer or a small amount of bleach water. A simple stomach bug that causes diarrhea can act as a death sentence through dehydration when water is scarce. Let us look at the timeline of how society unravels so you know what to expect. The first 24 hours are characterized by confusion and inconvenience. People are annoyed. They are waiting for the power company to fix the line. There is very little violence. The second day brings anxiety. The food in the fridge is spoiling. The gas stations are closed. People start to realize this is serious. You will see long lines at the few stores that might open for cash transactions, but supplies will vanish within hours. By the third day, the veneer of civilization begins to crack. Water pressure is gone. Thirst sets in. The unprepared are panic buying or looting. This is the turning point. If the grid is not restored by day 3, you need to be fully hunkered down. By the end of the first week, if there is still no power and no news, the psychology of the population shifts to survival mode. The unprepared are now desperate. The elderly and the medically dependent begin to die. The streets become unsafe. You should not be venturing out unless absolutely necessary. Long-term survival requires a shift from a consumer mindset to a producer mindset. If the grid stays down for months, your stored food will eventually run out. You need to produce calories. This means gardening, but not the hobby gardening of tomatoes and peppers. You need to grow calorie-dense crops like potatoes, corn, and beans. You need to learn how to save seeds for the next season. If you have the space, chickens are an incredible asset for protein via eggs. But beyond food, you need to produce value. The economy will revert to a barter system. Paper money will be worthless. Gold and silver will have value, but they are for preserving wealth, not for daily survival. The real currency will be useful items and skills. Alcohol, cigarettes, coffee, batteries, and medicine will trade for high value. But even more valuable are skills. Can you repair a shoe? Can you sew a wound? Can you purify water? Can you fix a bicycle? If you have a skill that helps others survive, you will never be poor. You can trade your labor for food or protection. Mental resilience is the glue that holds all of this together. It is easy to prepare the supplies. It is hard to prepare the mind. A world without electricity is a world of hard physical labor, darkness, and boredom. There is no Netflix, no social media, no distraction. The silence can be deafening. Depression and hopelessness are real dangers. You need to maintain a routine. Wake up at a set time. Assign tasks to every family member. Work keeps the mind occupied and prevents dwelling on the catastrophe. In the evenings, you need analog entertainment. Books, cards, board games, storytelling. These seem trivial now, but when the nights are 12 hours long and pitch black, a deck of cards can be the difference between maintaining morale and succumbing to despair. Keep a journal. Documenting your experience gives you a sense of history and purpose. It reminds you that you are an observer and a survivor, not just a victim. There is a frequent question about what to do with pets. It is a harsh reality, but you must include them in your rationing plan. A large dog eats as much as a human. If you do not have food stored for them, you will face a heartbreaking choice. Stock up on dry kibble now. It is cheap and lasts a long time. But also understand that in a rural environment, a dog is a security asset that earns its keep. In an urban apartment, a barking dog might be a liability that reveals your location. Weigh these factors now before the emotion of the moment clouds your judgment. Let's address the specific medical needs that arise when the pharmacies close. If you or a family member depends on daily medication, you are on a strict countdown.
Insulin, heart medication, antidepressants, these supply chains are fragile. Try to build a buffer now. Ask your doctor for a 90-day supply. Keep a rotation. But also look into natural alternatives or lifestyle changes that might mitigate the need for certain drugs if the modern supply vanishes. Learn basic first aid. A simple cut in a grid-down world can lead to sepsis. You need to know how to clean a wound, how to dress it, and how to spot infection. Stock up on antibiotics if you can legally and safely do so, or learn about natural antiseptics like honey and specific herbs. Knowledge weighs nothing but carries immense value. One of the biggest mistakes people make is underestimating the psychological shock of the new normal. We are creatures of habit. When the hot shower is gone, when the climate control is gone, when the instant gratification of the internet is gone, people become irritable and irrational. You, as the prepared individual, must be the anchor. You must remain calm. Your family will look to you to gauge how terrified they should be. If you are frantic, they will panic. If you are calm, deliberate, and focused, they will find the strength to carry on. Leadership in a crisis is not about shouting orders. It is about demonstrating competence and emotional stability. Consider the layout of your home in terms of heat. If the event happens in winter, your furnace is dead. Your house will freeze. You need a plan to create a microclimate. Do not try to heat the whole house. Pick one room, preferably one that is south-facing, to catch solar heat during the day. Seal off the other rooms. Hang blankets over the doorways. Set up a tent inside that room and sleep in it. The body heat of several people inside a tent, inside a sealed room, can keep the temperature survivable even in freezing weather. If you have a fireplace, ensure you have wood, but realize that fireplaces are inefficient. A wood stove is far superior. If you do not have these, warm clothing and sleeping bags rated for 0 degrees are your life support. Hypothermia kills faster than starvation. If the event happens in summer, heat stroke is the enemy. Without air conditioning, indoor temperatures can soar. You need to understand passive cooling. Open windows at night to let cool air in, then close them and cover them with blackout curtains as soon as the sun rises to trap that cool air. Stay on the lowest floor or the basement. Hydration becomes even more critical. You must work during the early morning or late evening and rest during the heat of the day. This is how our ancestors survived for thousands of years, and you will have to relearn these rhythms. Reflecting on the nature of an EMP, it is important to understand that while it is a technological disaster, it is ultimately a human challenge. The technology failing is just the trigger. The real survival story is how human beings react to scarcity and fear. The gadgets and the gear are fun to collect, but they are crutches. The true survival kit is between your ears. It is your ability to adapt, to improvise, and to endure discomfort. It is your willingness to eat cold rice and beans without complaining. It is your ability to dig a latrine without losing your dignity. It is your capacity to comfort a crying child when you are terrified yourself. Do not wait for the lights to go out to start thinking about this. The window of opportunity to prepare is open right now, but it could close tomorrow. Every can of food you buy today is one less day of hunger later. Every skill you learn this weekend is a problem you can solve when the internet is gone. Every conversation you have with your family about a rally point creates a layer of safety that money cannot buy. So look at your life today. Look at the water in your tap, the food in your pantry, the car in your driveway. Appreciate them, but do not depend on them blindly. Ask yourself the hard question: if all of this vanished in a heartbeat, what is my next move? If you have a plan, you have a chance. If you have supplies, you have a buffer. If you have a community, you have a future. The darkness may come, but it does not have to be the end. It can simply be a different beginning, provided you are ready to face it with eyes wide open and a plan in place. Start small, but start today. Fill those water bottles, buy that extra bag of rice, learn how to bandage a wound. The future belongs to those who prepare for it, not those who just hope for the best. Survival is not a product you buy, it is a lifestyle you cultivate. Be the person who knows what to do when the screen goes black.